machine na ultrasound or even portable lagi siya, gamay siya, square siya, type. Nagkanti siya siya. Ang lang, we don't want hindi mo gito alam parapin.
Kira.
Pilit na parapin.
Ala.
Lama na ni. Lama na ni. Hey. So what's that? Balik ko lang ang topic. Kasi masih mag-isip siya dito. Pero may siya mag-isisan. Okay. So, we don't want you to memorize yun with regards to the switch, the buttons there, or knobs. Okay, again, as we mentioned, each ultrasound is different ang model niya. Difference ang mga adjustment ng mga parts. What you just have to learn is the basic principle behind how this ultrasound will be applied. But since during some practical, you have to use this machine, so you cannot avoid really to memorize it. So no. Okay. But if makalimot ganin mo sa mga switch or knob, etc., siya yung principle sa modalities that before you're going to use, you have to read first the brochure of the machine to be familiar with the machine. Okay, each machine really have different adjustable switches or knobs. Okay? So let's be familiar first with these different knobs. So this one would be your main switch on and off. So we're going to use standard kung 0, that's it, sure kita. Yes. Kita din. Sure. So, with this one, especially sa NRAM, if ever is off, they have a symbol there na 0. If on, is vertical line. Yeah, so you just have to switch that on. Grab. There. So there. So, sound yun siya. If appearing 0, that will indicate that inside the machine is functioning well. If ever na-alay horizontal line, so that will indicate something wrong with the machine. Okay, next, this knob here. Okay, this is a selector knob used to select which type of ultrasound you're going to use, whether it's pulse or continuous. One was a pulse or continuous. So, if ever continuous, pasabot, always siya naghatag energy on. So, if ever sa continuous, always siya on, so there's more thermal effect. Okay, more thermal effect, more heating up of the tissue. So, if you have, if you want to heat up more your tissue, then you have to use a continuous type of ultrasound. Kung di kayo mo ganyahan o mo heat up ang tissue, then you have to use the other type of ultrasound. Okay. So, usually if ever you have this continuous or those mga chronic cases or contracture, goes chronic. Next, this one. Okay, and money siya ang included yung sa machine hataws. If ever you have this mirror siya, square root, yung symbol, you have seen this one. So, square root siya ba? So, pasabot, once, diba, square root, mana, saka niya na. So, once mo saka na yun on, state na yun siya always on. Hindi na siya mo off. Mana siya continuous. Mo ana ganin ang line, mo saka niya mo ubos. Pasabot, nanay on and off. Here, on and off. So, mag-on and off gani siya. So, pasabot, that will indicate pulse type of ultrasound. Pulse. So, sa pulse type, hindi magi siya always naghatag ultrasonic energy. So, there's less thermal effect. ang pulse. Okay, so you have 3 types of pulse ultrasound here. This is the ratio there. You have 0.5 is to 9.5, 1 is to 9, then 2 is to 8. Sabot na, ang kanang lesser values, those are the on nga phase. Katong larger values, those are the off nga phase. So on siya, if you're facing it on the left side, na off on the right side. So basta kinsa tay gamay nga values, usually the on. So muhatag siya ultrasonic energy. And this is in terms of milliseconds. So like if you have a ratio 2 is to 8, pasabotan na is 2 milliseconds siya mo on, 8 milliseconds siya mo off. And if you have 1 is to 9, so you have 1 millisecond mo on, 9 millisecond mo off. So mahog nga ang 1 ko niya is 10 millisecond. So yan ito. So if you have 0.5 is to 9.5, pasabot na 0.5 millisecond ang on, 9.5 milliseconds ang off. If you're going to compare all these 3 pulse ultrasound, you would expect that the ratio of 0.5 is to 9.5 is the type of pulse ultrasound that gives the least thermal effect. Or we can even say what the thermal effect. Ang 0.5 is to 9.5 because for a very short time na siya muhatag energy. Usually we apply this pulse if you want less thermal effect or you don't want thermal effect na mo produce. So like there are certain conditions like acute na pwede ma-apply ultrasound if we don't want to apply thermal effect kasi mo exaggerate kung na-heat. So, muna siya more ang micromassage sa itong iapas. So, you can use your pulse. If ever it's very acute there, so you can even use your 0.5 is to 9.5. Okay, there's less or minimal thermal effect. Yeah. So, there siya. So, you just have to move this adjustable knob. Next, this one. This is the display setting for the time. So you have minutes there. So usually ultrasound, pila minutes you have ingon sa lecture. Pila ka minutes da ang parameters or you mentioned si Miss Janice. Usually pila. Sa inyong book, it's 10. Usually in clinical practice, it's 5 minutes. But here I'm pushing 10. Usually sa clinical practice here, kung set up long, it's 5. Look, 5, 10, 15, okay. Depending on depending also on the cut. Ano siya? If there would be more area to be, there's a larger area to be treated, usually have a longer duration pag apply sa ultrasound. Like for example, low back naman. Okay, sa ultrasound, you have to move the head. So, i-move niyo mo sa head. If wider ang area, so you have i-move ang head nito. Kung short duration na yung apply, tendency, wapagay mo kabalik, mo end na ang inyong treatment ng time or duration. So, we need at least makabalik yun siya sa yung in-stroking mo. So, muna siya, if larger ang area to be treated, we usually prescribe a longer duration. Okay, how to adjust this time? So, you just use this select adjustable switch. So, you have there minutes. So, arrow up means increasing the time. Arrow down is decreasing the time. So, if you want to increase that, you just press that one. And then press that one to by head ng tao. Sige lang. So, suppose ano ni siya, ana mo, i-press na siya, or steady mo, saka na siya. Then, decreasing the time, reduce na siya down. Later na kita out the head mo. Ayan. So, money siya ang used to adjust the time. Next, this one. This is the display setting for the intensity of the ultrasound. Intensity. So here it is being expressed in two ways. The one is either watts, the other one is watts per centimeter squared. Watts ni siya, watts. So if ever mo light gani ni siya, pasabot, ang na-display diri, whatever value na-display here, ang yung unit would be watts per centimeter squared. If ever mo light gani ni siya, pasabot, whatever value na-display there is in terms of watts. So usually, ang common you prescribe ng unit for intensity, it's watts per centimeter squared. Usually, mo siya. Depending kung which you want to view, is either watts per centimeter squared or watts. So, common na select. Okay, how to convert watts to watts per centimeter squared? Ano siya? If you place this to watts, let's say for example, you have 10 watts here. 10 watts that. And then, you have here sa inyong head, usually ang head, I'm like you mentioned, there pila yung ERA. What is ERA? Effective radiating area. May i-mention sa lecture now. So, pasabotan na ang radiating area of the head, ang effective na kuhan siya. So, na may i-mention that. Like for example, you have 10 watts here, yung ERA is 5. ERA niya is 5. So, pasabot, ang iyang intensity based on watts per centimeter squared would be equal to pila? So, divide na nimo ang watts by ERA. So, you have 2 watts per centimeter squared. So, divide the watts to your ERA. So, if ever you have 10 watts, divide by 2 centimeters squared. Because that's your ERA. So, if ever it's 5 tons, so you have 10 watts, then divide by 5, so you have 2 watts per centimeter squared. So that's how to convert your watts to watts per centimeter squared. Mana? Here. Okay, next. This one. So this is the frequency of your ultrasound and machine. With regards to the frequency, there are several. It could range from 0.75 to 3 megahertz. But certain machine would just limit to certain frequency. Like this one, you limit na niya to 1 megahertz or 3 megahertz. So, di na kaka-choose og lain kung wala man yung ikuan, either 1 or 3. And that's the most common frequency used. Okay. So, with regards to your frequency here, this can now determine or affect the depth of penetration. The depth of penetration. So, with regards to your frequency, if the frequency, the depth of penetration is inversely proportional to the frequency of the ultrasound. So, muna siya, if mas lesser ganyang frequency sa ultrasound, lesser you would expect mas deeper ang penetration. Kung lesser ang frequency, mas deeper ang penetration pa. The greater the frequency, mas superficial ang penetration pa. So, muna siya, here, if ever the structures that you're going to treat is more deeper, especially ang muscle is so thick, so you have to, para sa FCAP, you're going to use the 1 megahertz. If ever the muscle is lesser, like probably you are going to treat here, like you have lateral epicondylitis, hindi siya deep, so pwede na ang 3. Okay? Kaya mas superficial yung kanya. Okay? But it doesn't mean na you cannot use 1 megahertz for superficial structure. You still can use 1 megahertz kaya mo pass through mangyapon na siya. Here. Okay, next. Okay, this one. This is the adjustable knob to adjust the intensity. So, kaning pointed, pasabot that is clockwise. No. Counterclockwise, that is decreasing the intensity. Then going towards this na dili pointed, counterclockwise, this is clockwise then, that would be increasing the intensity. So, ang counterclockwise is decreasing, clockwise, it's increasing based inyong position. Ang inyo na lang clue is pointed gani, pasabot gamay, so decrease. If di guys siya pointed, tako mo siya ni widen, so may increase here. Next, these two. These are the socket for the ultrasound head. So, yung ultrasound head, na siya cable, na siya para i-plug in. So, dili ninyo i-plug in ang ultrasound head. You have two plug in. So, pasabot, pwede ka ka-plug o duha ka ultrasound head, but you can only either use one of them. You cannot use both ultrasound head. Mani siya, na siya selector nga switch there. So, selector switch means if kani siya nga ultrasound imong iyo, so you place it there. If dito sa pikas, you just press it there. Na. So, muna siya selector switch lang which ultrasound that head you're going to use. Kani, ay na lang i-mind. Okay, next, you have this ultrasound head. So this is the part of the machine it would be placed towards the area to be treated. So with regards to the ultrasound head, you have different shape of the ultrasound head. Kani is another shape. Later on, when we go to the other modalities, that would be another shape. Then ultrasound head has also different sizes. So you have here this the large head, and this one is the smaller head. Then it has a socket. It has a cable wherein it has the end part are used to plug in towards the socket of the machine, which we're going to plug in. Okay, with regards to the head, if large head, so therefore this is more applied for those large area to be treated. From large area, so we usually prefer to use large head. Smaller area to be treated or a smaller head to be used. So with regards to your head, so you have to see to it that it doesn't encounter so much air. Kaya kung may encounter siyang air hang hangin, the energy there will now reflect back towards the head, and later on, ang head may madaot back. So you want to avoid such encounter siyang air. Kanya. Okay. So how to plug this, and then with regards to the head, there are two ways of with regards to the head, you have to hold it perpendicular to the area to be treated. Dili siya pinaslanting ang mag-ana. So perpendicular yun na siya always para maximum ang transmission of the energy, maximum. And then with regards to the head, there are two ways. There's stationary or moving ang technique. Okay, so stationary, rare ka ni siya use. This being used if ever grabe kay siya ang condition or case ng gahi na kay siya di madutlan, so stationary. But usually common is moving the head. Why we tend to move the head? Okay, one is to prevent cavitation. Kung ano say cavitation? Cavitation is some sort of gas there na ma-create underneath the structure once the head is not being moved. So, ma-create na siya, marbag na yung create na gas there, maburot siya. Di na siya danger if ever di mo explode. Kasi naka-danger ng cavitation is once mo explode siya, dyan na siya kuyaw. Okay, once mo explode na gani siya, grabe kaya ang energy ang makuha. Mer siya ni tapok og certain energy ba? Yung hipos ang certain energy niya. Once mo explode siya, grabe kay energy. So, tendency, pwede ma-injure ang structure there na nag-surround sa imong cavitation. Pwede ang muscle, pwede ang nerve, or what. So, may siya danger. So, may siya, we tend to move the head to prevent pag-form sa cavitation. Another reason why we tend to move the head since you have learned sa ultrasound, uneven ang iyang heating sa head. Uneven yung mag-produce ng heat. So if we're going to move that, it's more evenly maheated up ang structure. When siya, we tend to move the head. We have this stroking technique. Ano? So, Manisha, you're just going to plug this. Although you have seen probably na any bulge or ni elevate no portion ng plastic there. So, sa kanina machine, mo nandiyan sa ubos, kaya man ang more space there. So, usually, kung practical ako, usually blocking the unbelievable. There. So, mulight na siya if ever naka-plug in siya, and if ever mo sa yung i-choose. Kung di na yung mo ang i-choose, the other side, so off na siya. So, this can also be again with plug in. Once moonlight kanina siya, moonlight, that will indicate that your head is not in contact with the structure. So, pasabot, it encounters air. Signal na siya. Siga siya. So, siya nag-contact. So, kanisya ba? Some of the heads doesn't have any light there, so it would not indicate na naka-encounter air. Kanina siya. Okay. So again, you can plug into ultrasound head. You just have to choose which head you want to use. Okay. Next, how to check whether the head is functioning or not. As you mentioned, some machine, you know it's functioning because 0, 0 siya. With regards to the head, how we're going to use the one or check this out is being checked. By the way, this is your ultrasonic gel. Okay. So, with regards to ultrasonic gel or aquasonic gel, siya, this will serve as a medium to transmit your ultrasonic energy. As you have learned, even in your physio, sound cannot travel without medium. So, it needs a certain medium for sound to travel. So, it utilizes ultrasonic energy, sound energy, so it needs a certain medium to be transmitted. Kaya kung imuni siya directly contact with the patient's tissue, tendency kung namin na medium with regards to your skin or what, di kaya siya efficient to transmit ang imong energy. So you need a gel. You have several medium. Aside from gel, you can even still use water. Pwede po siya some sort of medium. There are even some other medium like presence like cream. Even medication, pwede na guys siya dito like as medium. Okay. So how to check whether the head is functioning? Hoping it will work. So you just have to make some sort of there icing of kuanity there. Wala, guniti sa guniti. Kami pala ako yung nangurog. Guniti ha? So, if ever the gel would vibrate, that would indicate that the head is working. If it doesn't vibrate, the head is not working. It will vibrate. So, how you're going to set that vibrate? So, para sige siya gatang energy, you place this to continuous. And after which it is 0 pa na intensity. Just set the time. So then, we don't want air maka-encounter sa imong head. So, imo na abrupt and nag-turn ang intensity nila. Observe, ato tanaw dito, abrupt, there. Wow! Wait, you've seen you vibrate. Again na.
Diba mo?
Again. Again, natanaw na ang content, there. So, vibrate siya, pasabot the head. For the last time. So, inyo na kalito na din ninyong duglayon ba? Kaya maka-encounter mo siyang air. Kaya, there. Okay, so it vibrates there. So, good, the head is working. Kaya. So, pwede niya i-recycle niya. Usip ko yan. Water by gel sa rehab.
Sir, pwede oil.
Tubig, sir.
What do you mean oil? Oil nga.
For the medium, adilan.
Pwede na siya, pero di ka siya liquid. Nay certain na medium there nga maka-absorb siya sa energy. Basta natin ikuan nga. Aquasonic gel is most efficient pag transmit sa gel. Basta na certain medium, although maka-transmit siya, but it can absorb some of this energy. Muna yung naka-problema sa pan. Kasi common yung i-apply na medium is your gel and water. With regards to the oil, pwede siya, pero maka-absorb some of the energy. Okay na, clear? So next is we're going to apply the ultrasound head to the patient. Inside patient.
Jordan.